Well, good evening and welcome to the Just Jump In live stream. Happy Friday, everybody. Let's check out who's here. And as usual, give me a shout out that you can hear me. But I see Brad was the first in and gets the virtual cookie. Hi, Tim. How you doing? Hi, Mom. Nice to see you in here. You don't usually miss these, and I appreciate that. Let's see who else is here. If you're here and lurking in the background, say hi. I appreciate everybody who tunes in and listens to me babble on about model railroading and other stuff. Hey, Gopher Girl, welcome. So, Gopher Girl and I had an early date tonight. For some reason, the hockey game was on at 4 o'clock today. And so we actually only caught part of it, which was a good thing because it wasn't a good game. But it was a good date. So to update you where I've been this week, I haven't done a whole lot. I struggled again with the cab car as I've moved away from the flat car for a bit. I started out last weekend. I wanted to spray paint more white on there to kind of fade the fade the red paint on there, but as you can see, maybe on here, well, it I had a little trouble with the mix of paint, and it kind of splattered. So of course I got frustrated with that, and I moved on to other projects because that was kind of annoying. But really, I just have the paint job, finished this one drilling that I need to do, and then I think then I think it's the brake wheel, and then I'm pretty much done with that. So being that this needs to be done by March, I'm not rushing with this. I'm trying to get unfrustrated with it because right now the stirrups are staying on, and I'm trying to treat this really nicely so that the stirrups don't go flying off. Hey, Dan, welcome. Nice to have you in here. I'm not sure that I've seen your channel. What do you post videos, and are you a model railroader? Are you a rail fan? Both. But welcome in. So what I did, so the next thing I worked on was trying to finish up the ditch lights on here. But once again, I found that I was having trouble fitting them in. So I cut them a little bit more, and they're almost fitting. But because this styrene is so thin on here, it cracked again. And so you can see it a little bit there. It cracked again. So what I'm planning to do is finally just keep kind of scraping these till these ditch lights fit in, get them glued in. Then after that, I'll cover them up with some Tamiya tape, and come back and redo the putty on here after the fact. Because if I keep going the way I'm going, I'm just going to keep popping these out. So that's what's next. But after I worked on that a little bit, I kind of got a little frustrated. So then I went to move on to the dollhouse project, and that's what I worked on most this week. I went to look to print some items for it, and even at Z scale, it doesn't look great to me. The scale looks a little big, and I'll try and show you on the table the best I can. This is a This is wow. I should mention I'm pretty tired this week. I've been working pretty hard, and today was a long day. And I actually did all talking today because I had meetings with all my direct reports with some year-end stuff. So I'm a little bit dragging tonight, but this is a watchtower for the railroad, and it's supposed to be Z-scale, and I'm not a Z-scale expert, but if it is, it just looks a little big on the layout. This is the top to a green bin, which came out really fantastic. These are 3D printed, and this was 3D printed in silver, and this came out. Unfortunately, the rest of the files to build this up, to build the layers up, are not printing, and I've done all of the troubleshooting. Everything else is printing fine. This printed really nicely, so I have a feeling there's a problem with the files. But I'm not an expert at that, so I'm not going to go in and mess with that. But if I use this, because this is nicely detailed and it looks nice and shiny, I may still use it, and I'll show you in a minute. I printed out an old water tower. The top, you could print it in parts or in whole, and I printed it in whole, and the top kind of didn't stay on, so I had to glue that on. But I printed that. But you'll see what this looks like as far as out of order. So sorry about that. And so the other thing that I got moving on was I got the track laid out on here, and what I found was these side tracks, because they were made differently, were a little bit smaller, and so I was just trying to line up the track itself, and so they were higher. So since I'm doing some scenery, I was trying to figure out what's thin enough, what could I put on here to even it out, and so I actually laid down some ground foam to get that pretty even. But that's on there, and I got started. Now let's see here. If I do, I don't know if I do this, but you can see how big kind of these look on here a little bit. This looks kind of big. I'll have to put some pictures maybe up online to show this, or maybe I'll do a YouTube post to kind of show how big these are, but they're pretty big. I found like a walking bridge that you might find at a level train station, but this is going to be way too big for it. And so I'm relying on others saying that those are, Z-scale. I could mess with these a little bit and reduce the size of them and see if they print. So that's something I might play with as well. Yeah. Hey, Randy, welcome. Good job on the Twin Cities Division meeting live stream last night. It was good for us to get together. You had a nice crowd for that, so appreciate that. So for this project, I want to be able to put some buildings in here, build some roads to have like a little bit of a city scene, and then do the rest in just ground foam and scenery. So one of the things I wanted to do was build a little bit of a mountain. So I did that with the piece of foam that I had to start it out, and then I broke out my old favorite. I broke out the Sculptamo. And this is just paper. It's mashed up paper, and you mix it with water, and it makes a paste, and that dries hard that you can paint and weather and chip away. So I've been chipping away at it a little bit. I'm trying to get it to fit nicely on a corner, something like that I can paint. Looks very similar to the one I had on my N scale layout. I did it on a corner. I'm going to attempt to do also a tunnel. So basically another structure, maybe in the other corner here, and do a tunnel portal. I may just cut from styrene. We'll see unless I can find something. I didn't. The other thing, if I'm going to add stuff like this, I have to make sure that these can be used for commercial use, because the idea is to draw people into my mother's dollhouse miniature booth at her shows. And it's certainly, if somebody wants to buy the display, they certainly can. But I need to make sure everything is commercial use. So the track I know is, but I'll have to double check on any structures that I use. And of course, for me, it's the big designer, the table, and the controller. The other piece, thing I want to do here, I'm a little bold with this, and not many people are going to see it, but I do want to put some wires in here. That's why I created the holes in there, so that you have your bus wire going through, and then some connections, and maybe try to just do some fake connections on the bottom. But that's what I focused on this week. What else did everybody else do this week? I know I've been following Brad at Willow Creek. He's been working away and sharing his progress. I've been encouraging him to try and put a video together of his builds, but right now he's doing community posts, which are great too. He's got great photographs. So let me know what else what everyone else is working on as well. I'd be interested to know where you are, and I want to make sure that I follow all of you as well. So, and Southern Pacific butter beans, just checking in on you. Just curious what your railroading adventure is, and is it, again, is it model railroading, rail fanning, both? Are you associated with the railroad? Do you work for the railroad? I know that a lot of our model railroaders out there are also engineers and have other jobs with the railroad. I come in from the art background. I've always been a railroad fan. I grew up along the Northeast Corridor in New Jersey, so really passenger service was my, I don't know if I'd call it a specialty, but it was, it's what I knew until I moved out to the Midwest and got to know BNSF trains and saw them traveling across Minnesota and South Dakota. But I still wonder what some of the things that you all talk about from cut levers, and which air horns, and which engine had a high hood and a long hood, and which this engine was refurbished and updated in this way and has these fans. I don't have that detail, and I try to follow along, and um, I'll get there someday maybe. But I come in from the building aspect of it, and the artistic aspect, and I started out in um, N scale, and that was simply at the time that's what I believed I could fit in a small apartment. And I started with a 4x4 table and everything Atlas. Even when they had early on, they had a DCC system, and I blew that out because I crossed up wires. Um, and I barely got that one started. And then we moved to a bigger apartment, and then to a townhome, which we're in now. And so I built out. I built a. I used a hollow core door, which is 80 by 30, and built an N scale layout with a city area, with a tunnel, with a mountain, with a couple water scenes, some farmland. I had a set of cows which I created a pen out of toothpicks, and um, I have some of the video. I have some videos and see and that I cut for with the N scale layout. I also got my Golden Spike Award from the NMRA using the N scale layout and N scale equipment and buildings and so on. And then I started to feel like I couldn't be as artistic, and I couldn't see, and I didn't have the dexterity to work with that small stuff. So my move happened to HO scale, simply because we had the space for it. And currently, and for the last few years, I've had two 2x4 modules where I picked a plan from the internet to create a layout where I could do switching of some kind with switch lists, and was trying to teach myself that. It's again, most of the people in most of the model railroaders in my area are pretty well along with their model railroads and are into operations. And I've only ever operated once through the Twin Cities Division's operators retreat, and that was pretty fun. I got to operate on 2 layouts, but it was kind of scary because I don't really know rail operations. And luckily I can follow directions, and so it wasn't so bad. And but I was trying to teach myself operations, because I think when it comes down to it, even with these live streams and everything, I'm kind of a lone modeler for the most part. And so that's why I was trying to do that. I'm still not sure I'm comfortable with a large group of operators and things like that, but I'll get there. So that's kind of what my journey has been, and now I'm going to work with the NMRA's Achievement Program to try and improve myself, and I can already see that I've improved myself a lot, but I'm going to keep working with that program. And so, I meant to ask Brad, with your aggregate supplier, is that conveyor gonna have a belt to it, or are you gonna automate that? Because of course that would be really neat. Hint, hint. Um, so. And those of you, so let me see here. Going back, I have so many of these little containers of paint. Does anybody have a magic formula with their paint and thinner for airbrushing? I have varying success with different paints. I mostly use Vallejo paints. Well, I shouldn't say that. I use Vallejo, and I use craft paints. And I try to do the the Vallejo, I use mostly Model Air. And so I don't really thin those out, and they work fine in the airbrush. The craft paints, I I believe it would be, it was, I think, Lionel HO scale. I have like this rock quarry thing, where the rubber belt kind of, and it's hand cranked, but the rubber belt, um, 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 cracked, and so it's cracked in half. So that's something that I should send that to you, so that you could have a rubber belt, and maybe make a mechanism to make it operate. Anyway, so craft paints. Um, when I use craft paints, I um, usually usually it's about a 50-50 with thinner that I um, use, and I have, I, because it was cheaper than Vallejo. Um, I get the acrylic paint thinner from Tamiya, and it works fine. But I don't have the kind of the formula with craft paints down, and I was doing like a 50-50 mix, and of the thinner and the paint, or well, at least visually it was 50-50. But sometimes it's not exact, because sometimes it just gets too watery, and like happened on here, it was splattering out of the airbrush. So if anybody has any super secret hints on how to do that, I also use flow improver. I put a couple drops of a flow improver in the airbrush as directed from Vallejo. And there you go. I'm going to destroy this thing. I get varying results with these. I just, it's not consistent. And so okay, so I'll have to check his stuff out, Boomer stuff. Um I could have sworn I've seen it, but I'll have to check it again. Um the um the craft paints are fine. I mean, I have success with craft paints, but it's never the same. I don't have like a formula. I don't have a good feel of it. I test it against the side of the little mix cups. We have these, I use these little mix cups here and mix them up. There's plenty of, you can fit two airbrush fulls of paint in these if you wanted. So, but I'll mix them up and everything, and then sometimes they just are I just over thin them, I guess, and they're watery. But with and Brad, I use the Tamiya paint, the acrylic paint for this, and that worked really well. And that I just used the thinner on. I used the flow improver, like I said, a few drops in ahead of the paint. But I used that, and it had a different flow to it. It's I didn't really have a lot of problems with it. And so I don't know if I just got the mix right or what, but I don't paint every day. So when I did this one, and repainted this, and when I paint it and I mix this, I haven't had a problem with the silver I use on that. And the silver I've been using was out of a I got a new set from Ammo by Mig. That was designed for, this has turned into kind of a product review sort of thing, but I use this silver paint, or aluminum. It's aluminum. It's a little bit of a glare from the thing, but it's called Rail Center Paints. And whatever, I don't know if it was like Midwest Model Railroad, but it was one of those online retailers, probably had one of these left and they were trying to get rid of them. So they severely discounted them. And on the box was an Amtrak train. And that's what these paints were designed for. And I forget another one. I use the yellow paint for just for these safety. I don't know if you can see, but there's kind of like safety lines on there. And I don't think I used the caboose red for something else. I didn't use it for the car. Anyway, so I use that, and this one is kind of not quite as thick as the craft paints, but it was thicker than like the Tamiya paint. And so, you with each paint, I think you have to figure it out and get used to it. But, just wondering if anybody had any magic tricks to make it easier each time I do it. So I keep looking at this little guy here. It's really disappointing because the silver, I had bought a silver filament from Micro Center, and it was just gray. There was no shine to it at all, and it didn't even look any even non-shiny silver. It looked gray. So I went and found another company, and this person's print that I did, I was just amazed. This is with I got the smaller 2.2 millimeter nozzle, and this came out fantastic. So I'm really disappointed that the rest of it hasn't printed. He has two sizes, and so this is the smaller size. And so, I mean, I can get away on here with using one of them. But just from a structure standpoint, I think this looks really nice. And with 3 or 4 more rings, I think it would be a really neat grain bin. So I was a little disappointed in that. So yeah, that's off to the side. And I was looking at that. Told you I'm tired. I'm all over the place tonight. So I'm gonna try and commit myself this weekend because it's frigid cold here in Minnesota, and I don't know. I've just all of a sudden become a wimp and haven't wanted to go outside, so I haven't gone out at all. So I'm gonna see if I can commit to finishing this up and seeing if I can get this white paint to work and see where we can get. But I did finish adding the pockets are all in there. Everything else is on here. I'm not doing any other decaling or deckling for my Canadian fans. I just wanted to get this a little bit more faded, and then get the trucks in and working and everything, which they generally are, but had a little bit of problem. And then on this end, get that brake wheel in and then stop touching it. Yeah, they do. Basically, the less you pay for paint, the thicker the pigment. They don't break it up as finely. So yeah, it does. Yeah, I'm sure it does depend on the brand of craft paint too. Um, and there are more expensive craft paints also. I've used a couple different levels of craft paints. Yep, yep. Dan's Railroad 2011. Um, I've watched his videos. He blows me away with the weathering that he does. Everybody that does weathering that I've seen on YouTube does a fantastic job, um, and I hope to be able to do. So I've done some weathering, um, but uh, I'm not there yet, but I've gotten some good tips and advice from people as well at our skills day, and so I'm getting better at it. And yes, Dwight, welcome in. Nice to have you in here. Nice to see you when you're able to get here. Um, So, so yeah, but I could go back and look at his videos to look at the painting piece as well. Um, and I know you don't need to have like a super expensive airbrush. I know that they, you can get finer tips and you can get better airbrushes and stuff. I've learned on the airbrushes I have, and my technique's gotten better and everything. It's just I just want to be consistent with the thinning of the paints, because it makes the job so much easier. Because I could have a really good paint job on something and then have to switch the colors, and then it's terrible. And um, I clean the airbrush like I should. I don't have problems anymore. When I first started, I had problems with the sputtering, and it was mostly due to not cleaning correctly and some of those steps. Um, but and I don't always have a problem. It's just inconsistent. I think I could get rid of some of these cups. I have leftovers, and I always mean to use them, and then I do some cleaning because I have so many of these cups. This is the aluminum paint. I don't know. My hand's in the way of the light. This is you can see that it's a nice shiny paint, and just needs to be mixed up again. And I've done also some different things. Like I've done it with just water, so distilled water I've used, and that works too. Uh, I think that um, when I was using the Tamiya paint, I used distilled water first and didn't get good results. So I moved to the thinner, and it was like night and day. So, I know to use the thinner with that and stuff, but I've been mostly using thinner with these paints. The Vallejo paints, like I said, I normally use Model Air, but one of my favorites is not a Model Air, so it needs some thinning. Is this Game Effects Rotten White, and that's what I've been using as the fade. But it comes out this is really thick. Um, so see if I can doesn't even feel like it's shaking it up. I also have when the other one's running out, I used this for something a while back. So this is a full bottle of chrome. Um, and this is real shiny too. And this is Model Air, so this doesn't need um, um, thinning. but you can see on the dried paint that's on it how let me see if I can sort of see how shiny that is. Oh, good. Like I always do, I make a mess. So, but pretty darn shiny. So when I run out of the other one, I'll use this one. And I bought a couple of individual ones for different things. But just to show you the difference in the thickness, that would help. This is, if it comes out, that's the model Air. And this is how easily it mixes around. We're doing a science experiment here. And this is the game effects. And you can see how this one doesn't really mix around like that. So that definitely needs to be thinned. There are modelers and artists who will thin the model air paints. I just think they flow fine. So maybe they'll be better or have better effects with thinned, because they're still a little bit thick. But when it comes to going through the airbrush, they go through fine, I think. But you certainly can thin them down. My problem is often getting them too thin, so I don't want to do that. They also make washes. I've made my own washes for the most part, but I have gotten, as we know, I got the creosote black from Hunterline. But anyway, so I digress. So this is my painting lesson, I guess. I don't have a lesson here. I just would like, if anybody has any tips, that would be great. Yeah, Dwight. So, and that's what I was. What I'm asking the crowd, my little crowd, is if you have any tips. I would appreciate any tips, because I've been having varied results when I've been thinning the paint. I've used distilled water. I've used alcohol. I've used, to me, acrylic thinner, and have had success to varying degrees, and I have had some problems. And I was showing this earlier, that I started on the bottom just to test the paint, and it's all splatter. And there was nothing wrong with the airbrush. The airbrush was set correctly. It was clean. It had good flow through it. But when it came to the paint, it sputtered. And it was when I was, I tested it away from the model, and it was very wet paint coming out. So I had a problem with that, so I didn't want to continue on to do the sides and everything and the rest of the bottom. So I've seen reducers as well. Is reducer and thinner the same thing though, or is it different stuff? And do you have a preferred reducer that you use? I'm open to trying all kind of, different manufacturer products. I mean, for the most part, I've enjoyed Vallejo products, but I'm open to any products that would help improve me and not have these problems come up. And so if you have any suggestions, I would appreciate it. Hey, Mystic, welcome. Nice to see you in here. Um, a hodgepodge of stuff we've been talking about. Just some updates. Had a long week, a long day today, so um, I didn't have this as structured as usual. Just going over the project updates that I've been working on, and so yeah, that's where we're at, and um, and a reducer something that um, just makes it so the paint takes longer to dry? Is it actually like um, a an actual thinner? Because I've seen them. I mean, they're marketed as a reducer and not as a thinner. So I was just curious what the different if you knew what the difference might be. You know, Tim, you're going to make me look bad because I should know what was said on the Crossing Gate podcast. I've listened to them all, but I'll have to certainly try that. I have um, I have plenty of plastic with my 3D printer, and I have clear, so I can certainly use that. Um, so okay, so it's a thinner. Do I? Okay. And it might be that there are, that's the other thing I've got to just do is I've got to try different products, different brands. Um, I don't think any of us are experts, but uh, I do value all the opinions out there because everybody's tried something and I haven't tried it all. But like I said, I'll have to try some different, not just different products, but different brands. Ken, welcome in, Ken. Um, so good job last night on being the head honcho on the Twin Cities Division live stream. You did a good job driving the ship and making sure everything we got to see everything we needed to see, and that was a good time. So appreciate that. And I forgot to ask Randy, do we have any clinics lined up anytime soon? Um, I know we haven't had a lot of clinics, and of course, the last one we had, I missed. That was um, the decaling clinic. At, that was at the Lunds Byerly's location. I missed that one, but and I hate waiting for our skills days for stuff. So hopefully we can get some people to do some clinics. I haven't seen one in a while. Yeah, there's a guy who a lot of them use the plastic spoons to test. There's a guy, and I'm gonna blank on his name, and I'm subscribed to him, and I saw a lot of his stuff. Um, he tends not to use acrylics, but he tests them, and he's done videos on them. But he does everything with the spoons. That's how he tests everything, and he's a um, he does a lot of that Gundam kind of models, but he specializes in the airbrushing stuff too. Yeah, Dwight, that's what I was saying. I started off using the um, model the Model Air, but what I was showing you is they make different lines. So even Vallejo has this one, and this is my favorite white, this rotten white, and that was what I was showing here at how thick this is. So even that needs to be thinned. And then I was showing this is the chrome from their Model Air line, and that doesn't have to be thinned. But there are some airbrushers that actually do thin that further. And they may have some style or something that works well for them. But for the most part, I've been using Model Air until I got into the craft paints. So, so the first, so my first modelers retreat was during the pandemic. So it was the virtual one when I first became a member. And that was fantastic. And that was all clinics. And it was virtual, it was online. Then the next one I went to, I was still kind of that loner, and I went through the room where all the models were, walked around. People didn't know me, I didn't know them, so there wasn't a lot of engagement. And I just walked around, then went back to the clinic. So I saw a ton of clinics. Then the last modelers retreat, I actually brought stuff to display. And so I spent a bunch of time by my models, and people came by and talked to me. And I went around and talked to everybody almost, and looking at their models and stuff. And I think I might have gotten into a clinic or two there. So I missed most of them, but that was a neat aspect of our modelers retreat, to be able to just talk to people and learn about their modeling and their experience and their techniques and things. So I look forward to that again this year. I do also look forward to having this in the cab car ready for the modelers retreat, to have them evaluated. That'll be a neat addition to the modelers retreat. So I'm looking forward to that as well. So Mystic, I've started to try oils. One specifically because of Ralph Renzetti, the Mud Father, and his reliance on oils for weathering. Also, I've tried it, using it as a paint on the wheels to show the grime. And my problem is my impatience. It takes a long time for oils to dry. And so to be able to move on to the next step, I've got to have other projects to do so that I can let it dry and come back to it. The wheels, when I painted them, didn't dry for, I don't know, a week or two. I was handling it and getting the paint in my hands. So I get frustrated with the oils, but boy, when it comes to weathering, the oils make the cars look so good, with dragging the spots. And I don't know where I put my practice car. I had a practice car at our last skills day that I was using, and I was practicing with I have these things called oil brushers. I've tried them. They're basically oil paint in like mascara bottles. Boy, am I losing stuff now? I wanted to show you those brushers. What did I do with them? See, one day I cleaned up. So the oil brushers, these are in here, are the oil brushers out, Ammo by MIG. And they come, you can get them individual or they come in sets of 3. And this is the Rust set, has red primer, dark brown, and rust. And they're literally in these like mascara bottles. And so I was practicing with those at the last skills day that we had. Another weathering product for those of you that are weathering stuff. I also have rust colors from AK. These are basically like watercolor pencils, but they're called weathering pencils, and you can use them as pencils. So you can literally sit there and paint something like that, or you can dip them in water, and then they'll act as a paint. They'll and you'll be able to paint stuff on them. Of course, my models with that are not close to me. But if you look at the Yard Cafe videos, I was using these pencils on the Yard Cafe with the weathering and rusting up the metal doors and metal parts. But some other things that I've tried, and you know, like anything else, you've got to practice with these things. You know, I don't expect myself to be good at any of this until I've practiced a little. I'm better with the pencils. I've used the pencils a number of times. I used the pencils for I got some metallic ones. So, you know, here you have here's aluminum. So just like the paints, and I can use that like a paint as well. When I was doing the taco truck, and I was following the directions, there was a part that needed to be painted. It was the back bumper, then the back step. And I don't have the dexterity and I have very shaky hands. And I couldn't really get in there well with a brush without getting the paint all over the truck and everything. So I used the pencil, and I did dip it in water and make it so the paint would come off, and it was more precision that I could use with it, and it worked great. So it worked as a paint, not just for weathering. So, but like I said, you got to practice. Unless you have a natural talent for the stuff, it takes some time. So yeah. So, but not so Mystic. Not everything's going to take days on end to dry, especially when you're weathering. Because if you're doing the dot method with oil paints, you're going to dot it, and then you're going to use a sponge, or you're going to use a Q-tip or a toothpick or something to pull down the paint. And so it's thin enough anyway. It won't dry like as fast as an acrylic paint, but it'll dry and you can move on from it. But it's still, for me, I still have to have the patience for it. So. Yeah, Brad. Yeah, I would say they're okay too. But again, you know, I would have to practice with them. So one of the techniques I was practicing with the oil brushers was using a toothpick with it and flicking it so that you have, you know, when you have dirt kicking up from the ground to give that effect. And so I was practicing on that. I wasn't practicing directly in that direction, but I was just practicing the technique on that at the skills day. So, and I had Split Rock Tom. He was helping me with that method. That's something he's done a bunch. So, yeah, it just takes practice and patience, and I think that we can all get good at all of these things with that practice. There's lots of things I without practice, I would have been able to get here. This is my third version of this car. The other two versions I didn't get this far, but this shows that I've improved. I don't think this is a masterpiece of any kind, but it's nice, and it's way further along than I got with the other ones, and that's just because of practice and because I just jumped in and challenged myself. Ken, that's like my definition. Um, I don't know if it's the correct way to say it, but I always say that I have like model railroading ADD. I want to try something new and then move on and try something new and move on and try something new. It's taken a while. It's been being part of the NMRA and getting to know you and other modelers, to get to the understanding that I do need to practice, that I need to test things out, and do multiple projects before I have something that's presentable. For instance, this table, just the table alone for this, this is a second attempt. With the table itself, to get that right. So yeah, I've had at least a little more patience to manage that. Yeah, yep. And the skills day is a great one to do that. Oh, Panzermeister 36. I've seen his work. His work's phenomenal too. And he's done some model railroad stuff, but mostly military modeling, and the stuff he's done on with the layer. That's the other thing with weathering, is the amount of work you do to weather something and the layers. And I mean, you could be 6 layers in, and I'm like, why did I do the first 2 layers? You can't see them at all, but every layer counts and stuff. And his stuff's really good. So if any of you are interested in weathering techniques, and haven't seen Panzermeister 36's stuff, I highly recommend you check it out. And I recommend you check out lots of the military modelers, because they have all kinds of techniques that may not cross over, that should cross over to us. But yeah, so the ready, fire, aim bit, when I'm antsy and I want to get something done, I tend to do that. But what I'm noticing is it just never sort of comes out. There are some things that come out that are good enough, and those are the things that I could live with, and those are things that I'm gonna certainly practice the stuff that gets evaluated for the AP certificates, and those things I'll do over again and take the time to do more work on. The stuff that's 3 feet away that you're not going to see up close, the stuff that's not going to count towards the AP stuff, then I don't care as much about those. If you're lucky, like we are in the Twin Cities, to have a hobby shop, number one, and number two, a hobby shop that has like a junk room, where they charge almost nothing, or if you can get to a train show, get yourself, for a couple bucks, get yourself a bunch of car shells or cars or engine shells, and use those to practice. One of my earliest projects that I featured on, I don't think I featured it on live streams. Maybe I did. But I bought 2 shells, each was like $5 from our local hobby shop, and I stripped them down. Um, they stripped the paint off of them and to practice painting them. And I actually only did one, but um, it was good practice. And so, and that's a great way to um, practice weathering too. If you're an NMRA member, get your division to do a clinic, and the NMRA will send you like 50 shells for free. And all just put some primer on them, and let people practice painting them, let them practice um, buildings, doing details on them, practice weathering on them. It's a great way and a cheap way to get a lot of practice. And like I said, I was looking for my practice car that I still have somewhere, but not here, I don't think. No, I don't see it. But I practiced weathering powders on it, and I practiced the oil brushers on it, and the panel liner, the Tamiya panel liner. I practiced that all on the shell from the Skills Day Clinic. So that's a benefit of the NMRA, and so I would recommend you get together with some guys and say you're putting on a clinic, and you can order them from their store, and they shouldn't cost you anything. I don't know if they cost shipping. Ken did those cost shipping when we got them for our Skills Day Clinic. But they don't, you're not charged for them as long as they're for educational use. And I would recommend it. One other thing I did, I forgot to show everybody this. So this was the original test shell for the tunnel for the Northeast Quarter tunnel, and I was struggling with this. I did find my way through it, and it just happens to be in black, but now it's a little bit nicer of a mushroom. Let's see if it's a little hard to see. So the other problem was these are very thin walls here. So I thickened them a little bit. I couldn't really do anything with this piece here. It's a little bit rounded, but I got it thicker. The track area will be the same dimension, but you get rid of this really weird arrow shape, and so we have something there to go with. So I know that I'll be able to do it, and then I'll look at potentially putting windows in or something in that you could see here. Now, granted, this is down the line, but I wonder if maybe there would be a reason not to even have the wall here. Maybe cut it off here or something so that you can see in. And it, when we get to that point and we figure out how we're going to do the tunnel on the modules, then we'll know what we need to do. But I just wanted to see if I could make a tunnel portal, and I certainly was able to. This will definitely fit the car, the passenger car through. The track fits in here. There's plenty of clearance room here for those. Try and I'll show you this. Actually, because I got to play with trains, so this will definitely clear through here with no problem. There's about an inch of room here, so no problem. And there's plenty of room on the sides here for this. So that'll definitely work. So I'm glad I was able to get that done and tested. So and Ken, do you know if that's a one-time thing or if they'll do that for multiple clinics for a division? Maybe they forget. And but I just thought it was a really neat thing, and I saw that long before we discussed having them for the clinics and stuff. And I always thought, we should just do that anyway and have a clinic so that everybody has a chance to, work on something and stuff. It's a great opportunity. So yeah, so that's my hodgepodge of different things I've been working on. I'm trying to have it so that I have these. I'm all over the place. But I'm trying to have projects going on so that I can move from project to project and stay busy and not let things just get stale. I don't know if you can see this, but I was testing some microcrystal clear on the windows because these come with tinted windows. The windows all fit nicely, but they come with tinted windows. So I have two things to try. One was microcrystal clear, which is this stuff. It's mainly used as a glue. Actually, they advertise it as a glue, but they say you can also use it for windows. And so that's what that is. It's a blue bottle, and it's called microcrystal clear. Another thing that I tried is this from Plaid. They make the Mod Podge. Is this gallery glass, and this is used for stained glass effects. Stained glass has this kind of bend that you see in here a little bit, and I remember doing an art project as a kid with stained glass, which was really neat. But it gives that stained glass effect, and they have all kinds of colors, but they also have this crystal clear. And the one thing that I don't like, again, is it sags in here because you're connecting it with the edges. And so when it's wet and you're connecting it with the edges, you have to get it to sort of connect. Let's have a little clinic here before we wrap up. But don't shake this. I was about to shake it. The directions say don't shake it. It's a really thick glue. You can see, that there. And so when you put it in, you have to put it on the edges, right? So you got to get all the edges so that it sticks to itself. And then you got to keep going kind of back and forth, and it sort of wants to separate. So you have to kind of overdo it. But gravity is gravity. So you do that, and then you let it dry. You sit there. My favorite thing in the world is to sit around and watch glue dry. Well, that's probably second to watching paint dry, maybe. But it'll dry. And you can see that's the inside there. So it was sagging down. Now that I turned it over, and it's going to be hard to see in here, but it's now sagging the other way a little bit. So gravity has its pull on it. So most of the time when you're using these, you want to use them on like a piece of glass so it's flat. So that makes it harder to use in these. But I mean, I could technically, lay that on a piece of glass, and I'll have to try that. I have a piece of glass down here. It's too big for this area right now. But I'll lay it down like that. And maybe I'll tape down the side. So it's flat on there, and then we'll test to see how that works. But this has kind of an applicator on it. It's it feels like it's thinner than and see, I'll use a toothpick with this. I can't I couldn't use this bottle, but same way as the others, but this is much thinner, so it goes on thinner. So might have to use we can try to use the applicator on here. Let's see how this comes out. But I would get this kind of on there so that you can try and this has a smell to it. It's not a bad smell, but it has a smell where the crystal clear doesn't seem to have a smell. But I mean, it's essentially kind of works the same way, but it's thinner, so it's harder to work with a space like this. So this is why it wants you to, its directions are to use a piece of glass or a flat surface to get that to stay in place. It's much thinner than the microcrystal clear, because the microcrystal clear is meant to be a glue. So, and this is meant to be on flat surfaces. So this one's harder to do, and I don't think I'll be able to really get this to stay without the flat surface, without something like that too, because it will want to stick. You can see here now, it wants to stick to that surface. So I would put that on a piece of glass, and then we'd have to see if this actually would stick to the glass too. If it sticks to the glass and you pull this up, I don't know if it'll stay. But you can see that's how thick the microcrystal clear is. As I move this around, it's not doing anything. It's staying in place. I think with the gravity, it's just going to pull down a little bit, whichever way that is. So yeah, that was the other thing I was thinking, Dwight, was I could use actual glazing, and that would be okay. The thing about these cars is the glass, the passenger cars, the glass is thick. Usually, the prototype I'm talking about, the glass is thick, and it usually has a rubber gasket around each window, because some of those windows actually are emergency windows and will pop out in case of emergency, and you got to take the gasket off, the rubber gasket off, and then push out on the window. So do I add a gasket of some kind? And that would be some really small work to do. And then I could fill it with a little bit of a ledge. So I was just trying to do it here, because technically, to me, if I was being very prototypical, I would have a problem with this because it doesn't look as prototypical as I remember it. Now, if I look at if I looked close up in videos, that might change my mind on it. I also did, by the way, you can see the shine. I also did a window here, and it's a bit flexible too, still. But yeah, So, so like I said, I'm getting used to having lots of projects. It's helpful that I can move from project to project if paint or glue is drying, or I'm just frustrated with something. I can move on, and then I don't have to get frustrated at the hobby. So, with that, I am gonna probably try and get some sleep, and so I am gonna say good night. And I'm really happy to have you all in here, and those lurking in the background and doing other things. I appreciate you being here and listening to me ramble on about the hobby. And I hope that you just jump in and try a hobby. You may like something and you may jump on it, um, and just have a good time with it and spend all your money. But just jump in and try something. Um, Appreciate that, Ken. I'm glad I can um, help you with your with your therapy. Uh, um, Much appreciated. Everybody have a great weekend. I'll see most of you on other live streams through the weekend. I'll be working on these projects and seeing if I can, keep moving along and hopefully get things done. So, like I said, have a fantastic weekend and remember to just jump in.